You thought you were safe, tucked away from the world, where the only thing to disturb you was the wind through the trees. But what if something was already waiting for you, watching from the shadows, silent, patient, and closer than you think? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Night Terrors, where we don't just tell stories, we drag them from the depths of your worst fears. Tonight's video brings you a chilling blend of real-feeling horror. A solo camper stalked in the middle of the night. A seemingly abandoned cabin hiding something you were never meant to find. And a disturbing presence that watches from just beyond the tree line. Each tale will leave you questioning whether the quiet of nature is as safe as it seems, or if it's just the perfect cover for something far more sinister. If you enjoy the dark, the twisted, and the truly terrifying, be sure to like this video, comment below with your own creepy camping stories, or email them to nightterror@xinbox@gmail.com for a chance to be featured. Now, turn off the lights, plug in your headphones, and whatever you do, don't unzip the tent. Whistle in the pines. So I was talking to my uncle one night, and he said something I'll never forget. You can't heal where you got sick. That stuck with me. After months of back-to-back stress, a brutal breakup, and a job that made me feel like I was suffocating, I realized he was right. Every corner of the city reminded me of what I'd lost. Traffic lights that blinked at empty streets at 2 a.m. The same cafes where I used to sit across from her. That lifeless gray office where time stretched like chewing gum. It all pressed in on me like a coffin with windows. So I left. No goodbye text, no out-of-office reply. Just grabbed my tent, a camp stove, some fishing gear, and a cooler full of pre-packed meals and cold beer. I tossed it all into my old black pickup and drove north. I didn't even have a real plan. I'd read about a place on a backcountry camping forum, Coyote Hollow, tucked deep into the Cascade Wilderness. No marked trails, no rangers, no crowds, just space. It was late October, just cold enough to smell the snow coming. The road narrowed the further I went. Asphalt turned to gravel, then to dirt, and finally to barely a suggestion of a path through the trees. The forest got denser, darker, the kind of wild that's older than fences or property lines. When the last bar of cell signal vanished, I actually smiled. I parked beside a creek, where the woods opened up just enough to pitch my old canvas tent, the same one I used with my dad back when he was still around. The pine needles were thick underfoot, soft as carpet. I stood still for a while, listening. No sirens, no footsteps above my ceiling, no city buzz. Just wind and water. That first night was like medicine. I grilled a trout I'd pulled from the brook, drank a beer, and stared into the fire like it could erase everything behind me. And for a while it did. I slept deeper than I had in months. The next morning I brewed coffee on the little camp stove, steam curling into the frosty air. I had no itinerary. I was just going to fish a bit, maybe hike, maybe just sit and breathe. But by mid-morning, everything shifted. I was zipping up a small day pack when I noticed someone standing across the clearing. "Morning," he said with a half wave. He looked mid-40s, tall, beard like he'd cut it with a pocket knife. His jacket was canvas and weather-worn, the kind of coat that had been through a few winters too many. He had a tiny backpack slung over one shoulder, barely anything in it. "Hey," I replied, cautious. "Didn't think anyone else came out this far." "Just passing through," he said. "Mind if I sit for a bit?" I didn't want to say yes, but there's a strange etiquette when you're alone in the woods. You don't want to provoke anyone, and you sure don't want to be rude to a guy who might be the only other human for 20 miles. I'm Max, I offered. Go ahead, grab a log. He plopped down, like he'd done it 1,000 times, then started eyeing my stuff, my cooler, the truck keys hooked to my belt, the camp set up, like he was making a checklist. Nice spot, he said. You out here solo? I paused. Nah, buddy's meeting me tomorrow. Got here a little early. He smiled, but not with his eyes. Smart. Always good to have backup, you know, in case something happens. Out here, no one can hear much. I forced a chuckle. Yeah, that's kind of the idea. I handed him a beer. We talked. Sort of. He kept steering the conversation into places it didn't belong. How far'd you drive? How long you staying? Your buddy got a map or coordinates of this site? His tone was light, but every word felt like it had a hook in it. By noon, I was twitchy. He hadn't left, just hung around, wandering behind my tent, poking at the brook. At one point, he disappeared for a few minutes, and when he came back, I noticed something off. My hatchet wasn't where I'd left it, still on the woodpile, but rotated, handle out, ready to grab. Hey man, I said, trying to sound chill. Think I'm gonna stretch my legs before sunset. He stood too quickly. Mind if I tag along? I tightened the straps on my pack. Actually, was hoping for a little solo time. Just need to clear my head. He stared a beat too long, then nodded. Sure, see you around, Max. I walked, fast. Took turns at random, looping through ridge lines, pretending I had a destination. I just needed to kill time and space. By the time I made it back to camp, the clearing was empty. I felt that relief hit hard, like a lungful of air after almost drowning. But peace doesn't last long when you're not sure you're alone. I cooked dinner, barely ate, kept the fire going longer than usual. Every sound beyond the ring of light made my heart thump. Just as I was unzipping the tent to crawl in, I heard it. A whistle. Not a bird call, not quite right. Deliberate. Too slow. Too human. It came again. Closer. Steve? I called out, unsure why I used that name. No reply. Then, just at the edge of the trees, he stepped into view. Hands empty. No, not empty. My hatchet dangled from one hand, like it belonged to him now. What the hell are you doing? I asked, backing toward the tent. He smiled. Dangerous out here, you know. Anything could happen. You need to leave, now. He tilted his head. Let's talk inside. No way. My voice cracked. I'll call for help. He grinned wider. With what, Max? Your satellite phone? I turned to run, heard him sprinting behind me. Then pain, white hot, bloomed across my shoulder. I screamed, tumbled forward, smashing against rocks and roots. When I looked up, he stood over me, breath steaming in the cold air. The hatchet rose again. I lashed out, foot connecting with his shin. He staggered. I scrambled, half crawling, blood leaking down my arm. My fingers found a thick stick, more club than branch, and I swung as he lunged. The wood cracked against his ribs. He growled and brought the axe down, but it missed, biting into the dirt beside me. I ran. The forest swallowed me. Darkness blurred everything. Branches tore at my skin. My shoulder throbbed with every heartbeat. Behind me, I heard him, not yelling, not raging, stalking. I didn't stop until I hit a rock formation I remembered from earlier. I scrambled up, nails clawing at roots and stone, found a shallow nook and squeezed in. I held my breath. Then I saw him again, below, silhouetted between the trees, axe in hand, turning slowly. Max, he called in a sing-song voice. You out here, buddy? He didn't sound angry. He sounded patient. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Eventually, he vanished into the dark. I stayed in that crevice all night. The cold was vicious, but I didn't dare leave. My shoulder was ruined, maybe dislocated, maybe worse. At some point before dawn, I thought I saw him again, far across the creek, just a shape among the pines, watching. When the sun finally broke through, pale and weak, I climbed down. My camp was wrecked, tent shredded. Cooler gone. Fishing rod snapped. The axe, still half buried in the dirt, glistened with dried blood. I didn't pause. I made it to my truck, keys still in my coat. Thank God. 2 tires slashed. I had patches and a compressor. They worked fast, heart in my throat, hands numb. Every crack of a twig sent electricity up my spine. By early afternoon, I was rolling, limping, but moving. The second my phone buzzed with service, I hit 911. They sent a ranger patrol, found nothing. They said it was probably a drifter, someone unwell, but I know better. He wasn't passing through. He was waiting, and some nights, just before sleep, I swear I still hear that broken whistle. Too slow, too human, drifting through the pines, waiting. Whispers in the canyon. A friend of mine, Jake, told me this after we went camping last fall. He swore it happened, and the way he told it, I believe him. He said, I wanted some time to myself. No phones, no people, just sky, dirt, and firelight. So I drove out to a remote spot in Red Hollow Canyon, somewhere off the grid, way past the marked sites. I found this ledge near the rim that overlooked the canyon below. Perfect view. Just enough distance from the few other campers scattered nearby so I could feel alone, but not stranded. He parked his SUV facing outward. Habit, he said, from watching too many survival shows, and set up a one-man tent on a clear patch about 10 feet away. Inside, he laid out a flashlight, a knife, and a small emergency radio. Checked the zipper twice. Locked everything else in the car. Phone, wallet, keys. He even pulled the key fob battery just to be sure it wouldn't randomly beep and give away his location later. Something about the silence made him cautious. As the sun dipped behind the canyon walls, the sky exploded in orange and deep blue. Jake gathered a few dry branches and sparked up a modest fire. Flames cast long shadows against the rocks. He sat in a fold-up chair, listening to the gentle crackling, the occasional gust of wind brushing through brittle sagebrush. But something felt off. No laughter, no distant radios, no crack of twigs from hikers returning late. Just a vacuum of silence, the kind that presses on your ears. It was beautiful, but it felt like the kind of silence that was listening. By 10 p.m., the fire was dying, and a breeze had kicked up. Jake doused the flames with water, watched steam rise like spirits into the starlit sky, then crawled into his tent. He left the outer flap half-zipped for airflow, trying not to think about how exposed nylon really is. He drifted in and out of sleep, his mind swimming in firelight and distant coyote howls. Then around 2:15 a.m., the world snapped awake. The tent jerked violently. At first he thought it was wind, until he heard the voice. "You think I won't? I'll drag you out myself, man. I'll fucking kill you." Jake froze. The words were slurred but seething with venom. He didn't recognize the voice. Young male, maybe early 20s, and way too close. The tent shuddered again, harder this time, and the voice growled, "Get out here, now!" Jake said he couldn't move. His limbs felt paralyzed. His heart was pounding so loud, he thought the guy would hear it, and still, he didn't move. Whoever was out there wasn't bluffing. The anger wasn't performative, it was unhinged. Suddenly the shaking stopped. Silence fell, thick and sharp. Then, clank. A metal sound. His SUV door being pried open. Jake's stomach dropped. Everything was in there. He reached quietly to the zipper, eased it open just an inch, and peeked out. Moonlight blanketed the area in cold silver. And there he was, a hunched figure rummaging through the passenger side of his vehicle. Hoodie loose, shoulders twitching, muttering nonsense as he tossed items to the ground. Jake said the guy moved like someone strung out, either drunk, high, or worse. That kind of erratic energy that made him feel feral. That's when Jake remembered. He'd seen another tent not far when he'd first arrived, maybe 60 feet away. It felt like a mile now. He waited, watched. The guy was still ransacking the car, so he made a move. Jake slid out silently on his stomach, then got up and ran like hell through the darkness. His feet crunched over gravel, too loud, but adrenaline overrode fear. He reached the other tent and knocked, whispering urgently, "Hello? Hey, please, someone's trying to break into my car. He threatened to kill me." A groggy voice from inside grumbled, "What the hell?" Jake whispered faster, "I'm at the red tent. He tried to yank me out of it. Please, I need to call the cops." The tent unzipped and a tired-looking man with graying hair peered out. He took one look at Jake's pale face and said, "Get in." Jake crawled inside, shaking. The man, who introduced himself later as Darren, handed him a phone without asking questions. Jake called 911, his voice trembling as he relayed his location, the man's appearance, what he was wearing. Dark hoodie, about 5'10", stumbling like he was out of his mind. The dispatcher said officers were on their way. Jake said those next 10 minutes felt like hours. He and Darren sat in tense silence, listening for movement. Every snap of a twig made his heart lurch. Finally, sirens, far away at first, then closer. Red and blue lights flickered against the canyon walls. Jake peeked outside and pointed. "There, he's still at my truck." 2 officers approached with flashlights. One shouted, "Police, hands up." From behind the SUV came the same voice, now weak, trembling. "I didn't do nothing, man. I was just looking for a charger." The man stumbled out, hoodie half off, bloodshot eyes wide and confused. He looked barely 20. His hands were raised, pockets bulging. They cuffed him and emptied his pockets. Jake's phone, his wallet, even the small knife from the glove box. "He's got priors," one officer muttered to the other. "Assault, trespassing, theft. Shelters have booted him all up and down the state." As they loaded him into the cruiser, one of the officers, a woman with a hard but kind face, walked up to Jake. "You were lucky," she said. "Guys like him, they escalate fast." Jake just nodded. Lucky didn't feel like the word. He felt hollowed out, like the adrenaline had carved him clean. Darren clapped a hand on his shoulder. "You did good. You didn't freeze. You ran. That probably saved your life." Jake half laughed, half cried. "Yeah, not camping solo again." "No shame in that," Darren said. "Out here, nature's not always the scariest part." Jake didn't sleep that night. He stayed in Darren's tent, flinching at every owl hoot and rustle. As soon as the sky lightened, he packed up and left. He said he didn't look back once. Not at the tent, not at the cliffs, not even at the canyon he'd come to find peace in. The land was still the same, but something in him had changed. He'd gone to find silence and learned that sometimes silence hides what screams beneath. Don't look at the mesh too long, so I was talking to my uncle one night and he said something I'll never forget. You never really know what's out there until you wake up staring it in the face, though. That stuck with me, but it didn't mean anything until last fall, when I went camping alone and learned what real fear tastes like. It was early October. I packed my car with the usual tent, sleeping bag, some canned chili, trail snacks, and my old sketch pad. I just wanted to clear my head, get off the grid for a bit. There's a state park a couple hours from where I live, Maple Hollow. Not famous, but it's quiet, remote, and beautiful in the fall. Amber leaves, cool air, that kind of postcard vibe. When I pulled up to the ranger station, it looked like something from an old western. Wooden cabin, rusty screen door that squeaked like it hadn't been oiled since the 70s. Inside was a guy who looked like he'd been part of the forest himself. Grizzled beard, flannel shirt, calm eyes. He introduced himself as Ranger Dale. "First time solo?" he asked, scribbling something in a logbook. "Yeah," I said, like I was trying to prove something. Just needed a break from people. He smiled, handed me a map. "You'll get that here. Stay on the marked trails. Cell signal's a joke out there, but we've got an emergency call box by the parking loop. Oh, and if you hear anything weird at night, don't go looking for it. Sound carries strange in these woods." That last line sat wrong with me, but I brushed it off. Campsite 41 was deep in the woods. It was perfect, secluded but not isolated, surrounded by towering maples and thick brush. I set up my tent, struggled a bit with the poles like a rookie, but eventually got it standing. A little lopsided, but it would hold. I laid out my bag, organized my gear, then sat at the fire pit bench to sketch the trees as the sun dipped low. Later that evening, I hiked a short trail down to Mirror Lake. The surface was glassy, reflecting the cotton candy sked. It was quiet. No people, no traffic, just the kind of silence that makes you feel both alive and completely alone. I stayed until twilight, then headed back to camp, lit a small fire, roasted marshmallows like I was 10 again. The flames crackled, and the stars began to poke through the night sky. By 10:30, the fire had burned down to embers. The forest had grown colder, and I zipped myself into my tent. I laid there, listening to the rhythmic chirp of crickets and the soft rustle of wind through the branches. Sometime after midnight, I woke up. Not suddenly, not from a noise, just woke. Like something inside me whispered, "Get up." I stayed still. My ears strained through the dark. Wind, bugs, a distant owl, then a crunch, a very human crunch. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. 1, 2, just outside my tent. I held my breath, eyes wide open, staring into the black. The tent was thin, cheap mesh windows and thin nylon between me and whatever was out there. I turned my head barely toward the window. At first, nothing. Then, a figure, tall, still, watching. I didn't breathe. I couldn't. I reached with trembling fingers and clicked on my flashlight. The beam hit him square in the face, just inches from the mesh. He was pale, unnaturally so, with wide, unblinking eyes. His hoodie was pulled tight, chin covered in patchy stubble. But his expression, that's what I'll never forget. No confusion, no drunken sway, just stillness. Like he was waiting for something, like he had time. "Who are you?" My voice cracked. "What do you want?" No answer, not even a blink. "I'm calling the park rangers," I warned. "You need to leave." He stepped forward, just one step. A twig snapped. I snapped too. I grabbed my bag, yanked the zipper open like my life depended on it, and maybe it did, and bolted into the woods barefoot. Cold earth, sharp pine needles, rocks slicing my feet. I didn't care. Behind me, I heard the footsteps, still slow, still following. I saw the car, fumbled the keys, dropped them, swore, picked them up, heart pounding in my ears, and finally got inside, slammed the door, locked it, started the engine. Headlights cut into the woods, nothing, but I knew he was there. I peeled out, tires spinning gravel into the dark. At the parking loop, I skidded to a stop and sprinted to the emergency call box. Hands shaking, I pressed the button. "There's a man," I gasped. At my sight, he was standing right at my tent, just watching me. "Stay where you are," the voice replied calmly. "We're dispatching someone now. Keep your doors locked." I sat in the car, headlights still on, staring into the trees. Every shadow looked like him. Every rustle made me jump. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. 15 minutes later, a parked truck pulled up. Ranger Dale climbed out, face serious now. "You all right?" he asked. I nodded, barely. He didn't speak, I whispered. Didn't act drunk, just stared. Dale sighed. "We found him. Said he got lost heading to the bathrooms. From a group site down the trail. Swears he didn't mean to scare anyone." "No," I said. "You don't stare at someone's tent in silence if you're lost. You call out. You leave." He looked at me, long and thoughtful. "We're kicking him out. He won't be allowed back in the park. You did the right thing." "Can I go back and pack up?" "We'll follow you." Back at the site, I grabbed my stuff as fast as I could. I didn't even fold the tent, just ripped the stakes out and shoved it all into the trunk. The woods felt different now. Not peaceful, not quiet. Just watching. I drove home in the gray of early dawn. The birds were waking up, the sky lightening. But I didn't feel comfort. I felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by that face, that stillness, that moment where instinct told me something is very wrong, and I was right. I haven't been camping since. Sometimes I scroll through photos I took that day, of the lake, the trees, the fire, and I miss it. I miss that quiet peace. But I keep seeing those eyes, and I wonder, what if I hadn't woken up? What if I'd stayed asleep just a little longer? What would have happened then?